You know, even though it has been over years, this first little shotgun burst, I'm definitely still sure that I'm in practice mode, you know, that I have not overcome completely certain things, you know, and you want to completely remove one species from the garden bed before you start importing others so that you can start importing others. And, you know, I don't know if you got to be an experimentalist, right? You got to really think of two or more purposes, that's for sure, for each action that you're going to do. And none of it can cost you your peace. If it costs you your peace, it's too expensive right there. Remember that, okay? File that one away. If it costs you your peace, it's too expensive. Some of you have been stun gun mode, have been fight or flight mode this entire time. And it's going to take you a minute to unwind from that, if that's you, right? So, once you're able to get out of that unfortunate state that is caused mostly by the environment, usually the best way to get out of that state would be to get out of that environment, change your environment, change your life, put yourself in the position to meet the next Jedi connection in the journey that has many chapters, hopefully, right? And I just want to say, you know, the quality and selection of those other people that you're attached to is the quality of that adventure. If you're attached to another Jedi, you get a Jedi adventure. But if you're attached to someone who's dark, deceptive, and small, here's the scary part. You're not even gonna know what the Jedi life looks like that you could be having. You just know the life that you're having. And as long as you're content with that and fail to identify that this person is causing you to live a lie, to live a lesser, to live a distracted, deceived, ill-perceived, ill-reflected, ill-projected, closing the loop on some sort of like caustic circle of self-sabotage rather than self-growth. You know, and in cases of parental alienation, you know, just to cut the fat off the meat, you know, if I was alienated, please tell me, right? It's like, and you know, first of all, the only way you can get a little kid to hate a parent is through extreme abuse, either extreme abuse from that exact parent or extreme abuse from the other parent, weaponizing them against the parent, or freaks like in the case of Elizabeth Smart. But all of these kids will have Elizabeth Smart syndrome. They will say, this person is my parent, the person abusing them, actively lying and using them. And they will say, that's not my parent, the one that wouldn't do this, the honest, loving one who's in pain. When I was in pain, the entire family would stalk me with all this stuff, completely gassed up on total fabrications or complete lies. They're all guilty of child abuse today. They can't step up to it. How are you gonna, you know, they can't take responsibility for that. And that's their only door to freedom. They've trapped themselves as child abusers. That's what they are. It's inarguable. It's inarguable. They can fight with themselves, a war inside of their head with their conscious and their subconscious and We can go into what Carl Jung says about genius and the closure of those two. But the fact is, the subconscious knows what you did do. It does. It knows exactly what you did. And so do you. That's you. That's you that knows that. But they'll continue to live a lie, and they won't tell the truth, and they won't apologize, and they won't make amends, and they won't do. And I mean, it's not just mouth sounds that are needed. You've got to do something if you're gonna literally, you know. There was a point in my life where I did do an inventory. I found the wrong people and apologized to them. They were like, "Well, I think you got the wrong guy, but I really love the positivity and da 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 da." You know, well, there was a point where, you know, I really started to really care about the damage that I inflicted. You know, we, in my unfortunate childhood, did some damage. you know. And fortunately, at the same time, I was lucky. I was very blessed, and I was shielded from having. But I've watched a lot of guys, you know, and just very, very plainly, again, fat off the meat. I'm a very beautiful person, very beautiful parent, very wants to see everybody win, looks out for all the kids, everything like that, you know. And then there's a person who acts like me, but is not like me. And they're dark, and they try to steal things I say and my own modalities, and then say and then say that I am like they are. So it's very, very confusing, but there's a very dark child abuser, and there's a very bright child protector. And everybody who knows the whole situation knows this. And those people who were gassed up flying monkeys, they really know it too. But they continue to do what they do, signing off on this, and I'm not upset about that. They'll get what they get. You will get what you deserve. Sometimes it takes an elongated timeline. And in those times, everything works out just perfectly evenly as if it was supposed to be. And time doesn't exist after a minute. In the space shuttle image of the spiritual progression, both biologically and not, and it never really was, while represented biologically, for training purposes, it's so obvious to me. And you can go out into nature and understand everything better and get all these same downloads, or argue with me, but you would have to do it first. Some of this stuff is really inarguable, and you get to the equation, but then you say, oh no, but this, oh no, but this, oh no, but this. And you do this gerbil will, and that's analytical. And you'll notice every process in your life is a gerbil will, and you have actually damned yourself. Right? And you could have just ejected and got the Jedi adventure with your alienated parents. Say you're sorry, have some fucking respect, and do the right thing and tell the truth and be genuine about how you feel. Or maybe that's too or obvious for most people. That's too hard. But Anti-Alienation Project Maddie can tell you very cleanly and clearly it wasn't too hard for her. That was the best thing she ever did. I think that would be consistent against all of these kids. And we all know that. But if it's too much for our senses, if we're too weak, we're not even going to go into the gym a lot of times. We're not going to make that first step to ever build any strength. We're just going to live our life without it. And that's the biggest mistake, especially for an alienated parent to watch. It's just a sad, sad thing. And I tell you this, what's very, really also unfortunate, it's exactly the intention, want, and desire still of your alienating parent. Because if you find out that, oh, you are safe, oh, you are even better, more safe, more protected, in a more honest situation, in a more loving situation, in a more real situation, it exposes how fake it's been this whole time. And that's what I'm saying. You really can't understand the fullness of the spectrum until you finally make the matrix jump out of there. Or don't. And be like one of the adult alienated children that Maddie interviews all the time that are in their 35s, 45s, 55s, and 65s, saying how drastically it still affects their life, largely also because of the largeness of the black hole, the amount of years that the witchcraft was functional for. Don't let the witches win. That's what I told Aaron Roberts, and he's not with us anymore. After 6 months, beast to buried by this torture by child, murder by child torture. And so, and that woman should be in jail. But instead she's just going to have a heyday and do 10 numbers on this kid that's going to produce the sickest puppy that ever lived when her dad was a valiant, shiny knight. And just knowing that the whole time could have had her correctly configured. Right? But no, they're going to cross all that and you are my slave, and you can't think for yourself, and you can't do anything, and you're 50 cents oldest kid right out in front of everybody, that lady should definitely, once again, you can't get those results. I'm wearing the same stuff as when I made that video, huh? I'm just noticing that. You can't get those results without extreme child abuse, either by that parent, which we know 50 Cent didn't do either, I didn't do, or the parenting parent who has psychologically violated that child for sick desires of hate and jealousy and envy while they stalk that person, by the way. You can look up there. I have been stalked. Everyone I know has been stalked. A person has been stalked. That I had one of my best friends that looks out for little kids and grew up in absolute abject poverty. I mean, it's insane. People lost their lives. Guns that had never fallen out in safekeeping fell into the hands. People lost their lives. All these buildings fell into the hands of thieves. Also, just turned into, it was total millions of dollars in destructions, lives lost, lives almost lost, lives lost and saved. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And this kid thinks that the perpetrator of all of that is some sort of victim and hero. That's psychological abuse, ladies and gentlemen. That is Elizabeth Smart syndrome, ladies and gentlemen. That is a band of Jerry Springer pieces of child abuse and shit enabling someone to do all that in this particular case. All right? And they look Jerry Springer as can be. And they look like witches, just like my mother too. You know, they change into what they really are in life. You know, what they've been a part of. They start to wear it. Pay attention to that. Pay attention to that. You know. All right. Much love, and I pray for unity and strength for you and me both, for everybody. You know, I pray that we can face these extreme challenges with valor and dignity and integrity and principle and care. Much love.